this episode, dude and Virgil Kaine fanboy Brandon Martelle hosts Davild Szlam, the founder and president of Virgil Kaine, to talk about Eighth Notch, their latest in a celebrated line of LTOs. Find out what they think on this episode of The Bourbon Hunters. But before we get started, do you like our podcast? Do you like bourbon gear? Visit us at our website at www.bourbonhunters.com to check out our bourbon shirts and to buy a Bourbon Hunter Kinsey dram. Thank you for taking time out of your day to join us on our hunt for great bourbon. Reward yourself and sit back, grab a pour, kick up your feet, and enjoy. Welcome to another episode of the Bourbon Hunters. I'm Drew Poole. I'm joined by
Brandon Martelle.
And we've also got Davild Szlam with us from Virgil Kaine. And he's been, I guess, a good host in giving us some Virgil Kaine Eighth Notch, which we'll get to a little bit later. And we'll introduce that, talk about how that came to be. But we're going to be tasting that on the episode today. We've also got some of the other offerings, some of their standard offerings here. Along with, and we'll go over a couple of those, I guess, as they come up. But so, David, tell us a little bit about yourself and how you got into the whiskey business.
Yeah, well, thanks for having me. First off, it's nice to meet you guys, and look forward to enjoying some whiskey with you guys. You're not the only one going to be drinking, so. But have drinking on a Monday can't beat that, right? So. This is a great excuse to enjoy a cocktail, but yeah. So there's not a whole lot to talk about, but really, my love for whiskey started at a young age, and growing up in the South, most households had whiskey of some sort in their liquor cabinet. So I wasn't much of a vodka drinker, even though those were the easiest things to mix. We would typically drink, bourbon or whiskey or rye, different types of whiskey. Unfortunately, my parents had Scotch whiskey, so that was a tough.
Yeah,
yeah, that was a tough one at the age of 13. Not saying anybody should drink at that age, but that was a tough intro to alcohol. But as my life went on, I actually found a love for cooking, and that's really where I started, was in the kitchen. I needed some money through college, and had to find a way to make ends meet, and started cooking in kitchens. And through that experience, I learned that that's kind of the environment I really thrive in. I like kind of chaos. And then I also love the ability to take comfort style flavors that people are very familiar with and create something different that's very familiar, but had a nuance to it.
Right.
And that's what got me into whiskey. Growing up in the South, we had ginger infused bourbon. We had bourbon and ginger ale around us all the time. And I just thought there was another way to create that Southern staple, if you will, but in a way that's, no high fructose corn syrup, no big hangovers from that syrupy kind of slushy drink that you drink. And don't get me wrong, I drank my fair shares of them, but as I got older, it was just like I could drink one or two, and then I was just like, I need a cheap beer or something like that, because my mouth was just so full of sugar. And I just saw an opportunity to, again, create something that was super familiar to people, and but create it in a different way. So that's why I started the company, really just with that idea. Just, hey, let's make a ginger infused bourbon that has a lot of those flavor profiles found in ginger ale, but do it in a way that is more kind of in line with our culinary aspects and philosophies. And we teamed up with John Warren, who has Spade and Clover Gardens. He grows this delicious ginger. We added that, a little vanilla, a little lime, and created this whiskey that all you had to do is add soda, water, and ice and a lime, and you had a really refreshing take on a ginger and bourbon. So that's kind of how I got into the whiskey world. It started with an idea and grew into a business, and now I'm sitting here with you guys.
Well, I'd say that's kind of like how I got into bourbon. I mean, I had a long, I still have psoriatic arthritis, but when they first diagnosed it, they put me on a medicine I wasn't supposed to drink with. And when I finally came off of it, I didn't know what to drink. So it was either, light beer or piss beer, as I call it, and sometimes some tequila shots. But then I just kind of, at some point, I think I wanted something a little more, I don't know, cultured, I guess, or whatever, sophisticated. I don't know what you want to call it. But so I tried scotch and cigars, and that just didn't really, to me, I grew up in the Band-Aid 10 era.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And to me, the peaty scotches taste like a Band-Aid 10, like what I grew up with.
1980s
Band-Aid 10. Yeah. And that's that iodine, that whatever. I just didn't like it. So I kind of moved away from that, kind of got into tequila a little bit. But then one of my buddies was drinking bourbon and ginger ale. And so I was like, oh, that's not bad. I'll try that out. And then I just kind of went crazy from there. And then eventually started removing the ginger ale and started drinking it closer to neat. And then now it's pretty much just neat with the occasional, maybe a hot summer day, I'll do like a ginger ale with bourbon or something like that. But speaking of which, that's how I got, I guess, introduced to Virgil Kaine, I think, was the Buckhorn podcast.
Yeah.
You guys would do your old fashions with the ginger infused Virgil Kaine bourbon.
Yeah. So I'm always down at Myrtle Beach. Like every year, sometimes twice a year, we're down at Myrtle Beach. And I think you guys established in what, 2012, 2014?
Yeah. Originally about 2011,
Okay.
But yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
Kind
So
of reestablished in 2014 with some new packaging and things like that nature.
I think in 2014 is when I discovered you guys, and I was down there, and
Okay.
there's a great liquor store in Surfside that is, they don't overprice everything. Everything is like their prices are great. And I was in there. I found you guys on Instagram, and I'm like, I'm heading down next week. I'm going to pick up a bottle of this ginger. Well, I picked up a bottle of the ginger. I think I drank it that night, just straight. And the next day, my wife was like, where's that bottle of whiskey you bought? I'm like, it's gone. She's like, it's gone. I'm like, yeah. I drank the whole thing, just like sat out on the deck and drank the whole thing all night. Ended up going back and bought, I think, 2 more bottles of that. And I bought everything that you offered at that point that I could get my hands on. And I think it had a different name. It's the same label. It's the one, the Rip Track bourbon, I think had a different name at the time. So I bought a bottle of that and just brought it all back with me. Well, then I just started sharing it with everybody I know that drinks whiskey. And like, dude was like, holy shit, this is some good stuff. But I started making old fashions out of it and doing like an orange ginger old fashioned with orange bitters and like basically clementines. I wasn't really using oranges.
Yeah.
And then I started my podcast 5 years ago. And I think that was one of the first things we did was like, we brought up Virgil Kaine. I'm like, this is one of my favorites. We gotta get after it. So and that's how I got introduced to you guys.
I still remember. So I own a CrossFit gym also, and I remember.
Oh yeah.
There was Mo, Brody Mays, and I think somehow you, and then everyone had put in an order basically.
Yeah.
For someone who was, I don't remember who it was. It might have been Brody that was actually going down to South Carolina, and someone muled it all back.
It was me.
And there was like 2 cases with like, everyone's handing it out to each other, and because we can't get it around here.
I brought back 25 bottles. I walked into that same
I think you're
store.
Probably admitting to a felony right now.
That's fine. I don't care. I went into that liquor store and I said, hey, you guys got Virgil Kaine? And she goes, oh yeah, we got plenty of it back here. I'm like, I'm buying every bottle you have. And she just looked at me and she goes, oh, okay. And she chuckled, and I came back up with the shopping cart. I think I left 3 bottles, like one of each one of each offering.
You didn't want to be a dick. You wanted to not take the last one.
Not take it. So I left 3 bottles, and she was like, "Oh, you weren't kidding." I'm like, "Nope." I brought them all back here for everybody because people wanted it. So
that's pretty funny. Yeah, I mean
that is funny. Is it Owen's liquor store? Does that ring a bell?
No, actually, I can look real quick. It's not Owen's, but it's in Surfside. It's like a
Pavilion.
Pavilion, yes, Pavilion.
Oh yeah,
yeah,
great account.
Yeah, they are awesome there. Like everything.
He's probably like, I remember that day. They
and they said we're out.
It was like ding 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 ding.
Yeah,
it was like, what the hell happened in Myrtle Beach? That's awesome.
Well, my wife wasn't happy that I brought home every single bottle from the store.
I think
I'm sure.
You had to throw out 2 of the kids' suitcases to make room.
Yeah, I did.
Yeah.
Or fill them with the liquor anyway.
It's fine.
They were growing out of those clothes anyway.
Right. Yeah, they were almost out of those clothes to begin with. So it's fine.
Exactly. That's right.
So we've got Eighth Notch in front of us here. I think before we get into that, I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to pour a little bit of Rip Track.
Okay.
So that we can continue talking about the distillery, just kind of the history of the distillery. I think we touched on it a little bit, but I want to hear more about it. How you moved on from ginger infused, not that you've moved on because you still do it, right? But how you, I guess, progressed or evolved since the ginger infused bourbon. And you want to pour as well?
Yeah, I'll take a pour.
So if you don't mind, kind of keep digging into that the history there of the distillery and the progression.
Absolutely. So yeah, being chef, and not having much distillation or distilling experience, and the fact that I was like ginger infused bourbon. This is before there was ever a ginger bourbon on the market, right? Like I had a need to get it out quick. I don't like sitting down with an idea for too long and waiting for somebody else to do it first. So I was super motivated. I reached out to all the big dogs, we won't name names, but hey, I got this great idea, man. Call me back, Didn't hear from anybody, as you might expect. So I was like, I guess I'm doing this on my own. So, I was looking around, and I was actually at the time at an office. I do some real estate investing, and buying flip houses or whatnot, and was doing it a lot back then. And I'm sitting in this room, right, and I'm like, out of ideas. I've reached out to everyone to make this damn whiskey for me, and I'm basically at the end of my rope, and I'm like, all right, does anybody in this office happen to know somebody that makes, whiskey, or that can help me with this concept I have? And the accountant in the office was like, hey, yeah, I actually work at this facility that helps people create their own brands and has the capabilities of sourcing bourbon and blending it and finishing it. And I was like, what? Are you serious? I've Googled everything, and there's one in South Carolina, like just up the street, like 45 minutes from my house. And I was like, this is amazing. So that like within a week, I have a meeting with them at this facility, and I sit down, and the owner at the time was just a great man. And, we discussed this concept, and within 6 months, we had our first bottle of Virgil Kaine ginger on the shelf. And it was a pretty wild ride, but yeah, so that kind of explains what we do. So we source whiskey. A lot of it's sourced from MGP, which is obviously something you guys are familiar with, but in case the listeners are not, a great distillery out of Indiana. I mean, they just have been distilling for decades, and just sit on one of the largest natural aquifers in the country. Have some of the best water, some of the best practices, and have the experience of distilling more than anyone I know personally, and just make great juice. And so for me, from a chef's standpoint, I worked in restaurants till I was about 25 and actually had my own restaurant and was a chef. I look at things as ingredients, whether it's a pig, a cow, a barrel of bourbon. These are ingredients for me to kind of be able to enjoy and be able to kind of create something new from them. So for me, bourbon is the ingredient now. Rye whiskey also an ingredient for me. I'm going to leave the Scotch alone for now. And the Irish. And the Irish whiskey. Conor McGregor can have that. Bourbon, I just thought there was so much complexity to bourbon. There's this sweetness, there's this spice, there's these caramel notes, there's this tannin from the wood. I mean, what a fun ingredient to be able to kind of fortify and to enhance. And that's really what we try to do. Is we don't try to mask bourbon. We try to create complex kind of harmonizations, if you will, that bring together, a handful of ingredients that really accentuate the bourbon, but also create something very special and unique. So that's what I enjoy doing. And that's why we do what we do with some of these limited time offerings. So the ginger we started with, and then we expanded the line a little bit with a high rye bourbon is what we used to call it, the Rip Track, and then our Robert Baron rye. And the reason we did that is because we kept going into mixologist style accounts, and they're like, oh, well, we can macerate our own ginger and vanilla and this and that. And I'm like, I know, I get it, but my buddy grows the ginger. It's like ridiculous. Like, we've already taken that step out for you. You might want to just use this and there. And some accounts were completely open to it. Other accounts were like, we don't mess with flavored whiskey. So what we did was we started off with the bourbon and the rye. The bourbon was at that point infused, if you will, with sherry staves. We passed the bourbon. We added sherry staves to this kind of what is it? It was this really cool like vibration machine. So we would have these sherry staves, and we would run the bourbon through it, and it would basically like agitate the liquid around these staves, and allowing us to then taste the whiskey and say, okay, that's the perfect amount of tannins from that sherry that we want, and then filter it through and bottle it. And similar with the rye, we would do that with port staves and sherry staves. So, ryes typically can be a little spicy. But what I found after, researching rye whiskey, drinking several different types of rye whiskey, is that the older rye whiskeys had this like sweet, beautiful flavor to it that almost reminded me of cherry. And then kind of finished with those soft tannins. So by utilizing port staves and sherry staves, we were able to give this kind of old world flavor profile to the rye whiskey that harmonized really well with Manhattans and old fashions and things that the bartenders were looking for. So that's kind of how we expanded the line into offering those whiskeys as well.
That's pretty cool. I think one of the things that has always just, I think, amazed me is a couple of things in the whiskey industry. And one of them is, the I guess blending, I guess is not the right word that they want to use, but like the mixing of the barrels and mingling, I guess is the better word, right? Of the barrels.
I love blending. I mean, that's what we're doing, man.
Well, there was a book I was reading that just mentioned that blending is not the most accurate.
You know
way
what?
To
they tell you
it.
Not to use the word smooth to describe anything either. So
I know.
Yeah. People are a lot more picky than I am. Okay.
Whatever you want to call it, but
yeah,
being able so a couple of things, like for example, like somewhere like a Buffalo Trace, a huge place like that, where I know everything's pretty scientific, but if supposedly what is true about the barrel imparting 60% of the flavors, what everyone always wants to say, right?
Yeah.
If that's the case, every tree in every season is going to be seasoned a little bit differently. And so for them to be able to come up with year after year after year the same taste profile on a flagship bourbon just truly amazes me. I mean, to me, that's amazing. Because for one, I don't believe that it's 60% of the flavor anyway.
No,
I think there's a lot more to it. I think the yeast strain is something that no one ever wants to talk about because it's the little trade secret to all these places. But I just still find it amazing that they can come up with a consistent product with all the variables that are environmental, that are associated with aging or maturing whiskey. So that's one. For two, though, is the concept of truly blending. Taking a couple of different barrels and, like you see it from like Smoke Wagon, for example. You see it from other places that take barrels and then they taste those barrels and think, you know what, these two would go well together.
Well, doesn't Barrel do that? Doesn't Barrel buy up barrels?
Yeah, crafts. Yeah, they do. But there's a lot of places that do it. But it's just amazing to me that they can do that in a way where, and Bardstown Bourbon Company, I mean, that's what they did with their fusion and discovery and all those types of things. That's, and do it in a way that it's actually good. That just blows me away. Like, I'm sure there's some science to it. I'm sure there's some just straight up, tasting, and someone, like a Jackie Zycan or, different people like that have that ability to just kind of take some barrels and figure out what flavors you're going to get. And I know there's probably a lot of tasting and a lot of, oh, this was terrible. But at the same time, having an idea and being able to find out a ratio that's going to be a blockbuster, like, something that knocks it out of the park, that just blows my mind. And don't get me wrong, I'd love to try it. The trial and error of that would be fun, I'm sure. But that's just, I mean, the one experience I've had of that, Bourbon 30 in Lexington, for example, they let you go there and you can just go through. They basically just give you a thief and a whole bunch of little cups, and they go have a seat and you just go and thieve from every barrel that you want to. And you can mix together a couple of barrels, tell them the ratios that you want, and they'll do it for you for your bottle.
I heard David's going to let us do that.
Oh yeah.
But I mean, like, we went down there, myself, Tyler, and Brett went down there, and Brett did a single barrel. I did a blend, or no, actually Brett did a blend, I did a blend, Tyler did a single barrel. And as would be expected, Tyler's was the worst. And mine was next, and then Brett's was just ridiculous. Brett's was amazing. And but like, that's what I mean, like having that ability to just sit and decide what flavors, and we were just choosing 2 barrels to go together. Like, I can't imagine picking between 3 and 4 barrels like a Bardstown Bourbon Company or, places like that just kind of have an idea where they're trying to get. And at any rate, my whole point with this huge segue was that I think that's amazing. That's tough that you can do that. But the fact that you guys are doing that is pretty cool. I like that. I think it's a neat, ability, and especially if you can achieve consistency while you're doing this along the way. I mean, I think that's really cool. So.
Yeah. And I think there's, some aspect of blending in all big, houses, whether it's like you mentioned, Sazerac or Maker's Mark or whatever you have. I mean, there's a blending aspect that has to happen because, they're not just bottling single barrels; they're emptying barrels and creating a blend, if you will. And
so
that's a fun process.
So when I want to kind of jump back. So when you met the owner of the distillery, what was the process of establishing your flavor profile? Like, did you do the same thing? Just kind of go through and say, pick a couple barrels and say, okay, I really like this barrel. Can we replicate this, over? What is that process like?
So first it was creating our blend of bourbon that we wanted to then infuse. So yeah, it was a combination of things. It was getting an age profile that worked for us. It was figuring out what mash bill worked best with, a ginger ingredient like ginger. And then once we kind of created our blend or our bourbon profile, then it was, how do we incorporate these ingredients to create this product, which took about 22 variations of testing, going back and forth, and basically, that process is me creating a formula, if you will, making the product, bringing it to them with the base bourbon profile that we agreed upon, and then just trial and error, having them try to recreate it over and over and over and over and over and over and over again until it was where it needed to be. And that was a long process, but they moved very quickly, and were able to take kind of our feedback and dial it in. And we finally got to a point where we were happy, 98% happy. I don't think we'd ever be 100%, but we were at a good place, and that's when we decided to move forward.
That's awesome. So talk to us about, I guess, the difference between, these, if you want to call them shelfers, or, your regular available, whiskeys, versus when you decide to come up with something like this Eighth Notch, or we have the Ash Cat here, which is an older offering that you had, which I'm a big fan of. I actually just finished my sample of that you gave me.
Oh, yeah?
A couple of years ago at the Arnold.
I can give you another sample before I leave.
I'm not going to be upset about it.
I know.
But I finished that. Actually had to make room for a sample bottle, actually, and cleared it out for that. And I was like, oh yeah, I remember liking this, and it was really good. But
that's really cool that you have the Ash Cat there. That is that's our original LTO.
Oh, is it?
So I have other than the Eighth Notch, I have all of your limited offerings. I have a bottle of Electric Owl left, unopened. I have Ash Cat. I've got the Ribbon Rail Rye. I'm missing one.
Roundhouse.
And I have a bottle of Roundhouse as well.
Nice. Well, you email me after this, and we'll get you a bottle of Eighth Notch LT. So we cannot let you be one man down. That would not be right.
Yeah. Well, I told dude, I'm like, I almost brought the Electric Owl with me, and it is by far my favorite offering that you guys had as a limit. And I finished off my last bottle. I had 3 bottles in total. I finished off the last bottle probably 8 months ago, and it just, every time I open my liquor cabinet, it's right there staring me right in the face, and I'm like, I can't open it yet. I gotta wait. Like it's like one of my unicorn bottles.
Well, I assume it's no longer made, so
it is not.
I would hold on to it.
It is not.
I know, it's sad. It's sad. I have I'm looking at my closet where I have my limited time offerings, and I have a case of each that I don't touch either. And it's very hard at times because the Ash Cat is we had an account in New York City actually that called it poor man's pappy. That's how much they were selling it. They loved it. So
it is phenomenal.
When I've had it, I've really enjoyed it too. And it's, I know it's a mixture of like weeded bourbon, high rye bourbon, and then so what's the 5WB HRS16?
Yep.
So what's
so a 5-year weeded bourbon mixed with high rye and then finished in sherry cask.
That's okay. I knew at one point I had what that acronym stood for, and I couldn't remember what it was.
Yeah, that is. I think I have one. I think I still have an unopened bottle of that too. I think I have other than the Ribbon Rail Rye.
I'm about to.
I think I have an unopened bottle still of everything.
That is awesome.
This
that's awesome.
Very tight, just so you know.
It's a loose cork.
Versus Rip Track cork, which was I had to wrestle that thing out.
I like what you guys do with the cork. So with your regular offerings, you just use a basic rubber synthetic cork. And I don't mind a synthetic cork.
No, that's,
Like,
I mean, Makers uses those.
Yeah,
and,
I mean,
it doesn't bother me.
But I like with your limited stuff, you use an actual cork for those bottles, and it just kind of it just kind of steps it up a notch.
A little more culture.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah. And all those labels are handmade by our friends. And
one of the things I talk about was your guys' your logo, like your font. I love that all of I haven't seen all of your bottles, but all the bottles I've seen have the same shape label, and then like a different something or other going on it. So I guess before we do this, like, I know that Ginger Infused, Rip Track, and Robber Baron all have some sort of train type of reference or something on it. It looks like, or some sort of transportation type reference. What's the tell us the story, I guess, of Virgil Kaine.
There's a story behind that, and David's going to tell you about it.
I'm teeing it up. You know, you have a podcast. You know how this works.
I know.
So tell us the story about Virgil Kaine, the name, and then like we are as a podcast, and I think you guys are the same, but I'm a sucker for a good bottle and for good labeling. My wife always calls herself, she's a packaging whore. So like if she sees anything on the shelf that just looks pretty, she's won over. She'll buy it just to try it out. Even if it's terrible, she'll at least give it a whirl. Like how many times she told me about the chicken cock bottle because it looks like, you know, it
looks vintagey.
It does, but the bottle's made to look like, what's that, chicken wire, you know?
Oh yeah.
So it has that chicken wire look to it. I don't know how many times she's told me about that, and I'm like, no, I don't want any of that. It looks like a gimmick. And then we finally had them on the podcast, and I actually enjoyed their stuff. I was like, oh, it actually is good. But like, I stayed away from it because the packaging was so cool. And I was like, if that's got to be a gimmick, it's got to be terrible. But then I had it, and it was actually really good. It was my mistake.
My wife does the same thing with wine.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
If a bottle of wine is under $10 and has a cool label,
under $10,
she's buying it.
Yeah.
I, on the other hand, go at least $12.
Yeah, and to me, like from a marketing standpoint, it's
$12.50.
Yeah, $12.50. Yeah.
From a marketing standpoint, it's brilliant to have an amazing looking bottle and an amazing looking package, you know. But to me, what I've always said is you can fool them once. If you have a great package and label and all that stuff, and it just looks amazing, and then they go out of their comfort zone and buy it because it looks good, and then it tastes terrible, they're never buying it again. So, that's great. That's half the battle, and I think you guys immediately win on that side of things. The bottle, the label, the logo, and again, I'm going to give you a chance to talk about the story. I keep going on and on here. But I wanted to kind of give you guys props on the packaging and the bottles and stuff. I think they're outstanding. I think they look really good on the shelf. Every time I walk into my bourbon room, they're just sitting right there, and they always stand out to me. So I think from that side of things, awesome. Great work. I think you've done exactly what you've probably set out to do, I would imagine, and that's get people's attention with the labels and the bottles. So, but tell us about Virgil Kaine. Tell us how you got there.
Yeah, absolutely. Before I move on, so you mentioned you had chicken cock on. Did you have Greg Snyder on?
Yeah, Greg
Excellent.
Snyder.
Great guy. Great guy.
He was fun to talk
World
to.
of knowledge. World of knowledge.
Oh my gosh. The information that he had, I had no idea his lineage and all that stuff. Like, he was one of the guys that I generally like to do a lot of research before the episode, just so I can have some things to, just shoot off of them and kind of tee them. That was one of the times, I don't remember when we had them, but it was around the holidays, and I just did not have any time to do any research. So he just blew me away with his knowledge. And I was so upset with myself that I didn't have more time to research and tee that up, because I really feel like it wasn't a bad episode or anything, but it could have been so much better if I had been more prepared.
Yeah, I had the privilege of doing an event with Greg here in Charleston, and I basically sat back and just said, hey, you take as much time as you need, and I'll wrap it up, because this is my backyard, and I'm like, well, most of these people here already know me. So you take as much time. Literally, I think he graciously gave me about 10 minutes at the end, but he had that much knowledge to give to people, and they loved it. And he's a great guy. So anyway, I'm glad you got to taste his product and his whiskey, because it's good. But yeah, so Virgil Kaine, back when we started this, infusing ginger into bourbon was frowned upon. I mean, I remember when I came up with the idea and I reached out to some writer friends of mine, like, hey, hook me up with an article. I just thinking it was easy because they were my friends. I was like, let's get this in everywhere, and they're like, why did you put ginger into bourbon? You know what I mean? They're like, are you sure you want to do that? And I'm like, it's already done. I'm not going back. You know what I mean? And so it was frowned upon, and that really made me start looking for kind of inspirational figures that could be the at the forefront of our brand. And one that I came across was Virgil Kaine. And Virgil Kaine lived during the Civil War era. And his story is that he was part of a Confederate family, though chose not to, take up arms and join his family as a Confederate soldier. Instead, worked on a train, helping people get out of the South. And that really inspired, the name, because it's like, this guy is risking his neck, literally, right? Putting his own family, his beliefs aside and following his own heart. And so when you look at Virgil Kaine and you look at us, right, we were doing something that was super condoned, if you will. But we had to, right? We had to follow our heart, and we had to follow what we thought was what people would want to drink at some point in the world, and follow our passion. And that's kind of how the name Virgil Kaine came. And it's because of his affiliation with trains and working on the locomotive. A lot of our brand kind of revolves around the train. So whether it's the Electric Owl, which has some affiliation to a train, where it's the guy back in the day at the train yard that would light up the track so the train could see where it was going, or it was, the roundhouse, which is an area where trains would come in and they would utilize the roundhouse to put them back on the path they came from. Or it's the eighth notch, which is the final notch in the final throttle, if you will, that propels the train forward on a locomotive. We try to kind of look at different aspects and train terminology to kind of show some symbolic parallel with how we think as chefs and as creators of bourbon. So the eighth notch being that, it's the last throttle that really pushes it forward. So this was like a concept we've been tinkering with for years, and we finally figured out how to kind of push it forward and to create something new and special. And so that's really what we try to do with our limited time offerings. And that's why we don't do them over and over again, or continue to release the same one, is because these whiskeys talk to me as a blender, right? There's a time in the year where I'll have 30 different whiskeys on my desk. Doesn't suck. I'll tell you that.
You let me know, and I'll come join you.
Yeah, please do. Please do. I need help. And I'll sit there and I'll taste these whiskeys, and some will be 5 years old, some will be 12 years old, some will be $6,000 a barrel, some will be I mean, it's crazy barrel cost now. Some will be $3,000 a barrel, 2,000. And I don't look at the prices, I don't look at the age, I just taste them all, right? And whichever one kind of speaks to me, that's and like whenever an idea is sparked, that's when I know I have something, right? Like, and it's really as simple as me tasting the product. And, for example, the Ribbon Rail Rye that we did, I tasted this whiskey and I was like, that's that cherry that I love. right? So how do I create a chocolate covered cherry, if you will, with this rye, right? And so that's when the idea starts spinning, and I'm like, I got to do this. So that was the concept behind the Ribbon Rail Rye. Was like, okay, I got to find a brewery, because we don't distill, to impart some chocolate malt, into this whiskey. So maybe they can make a chocolate malted porter, and I can give them whiskey barrels, or our barrels, and they can then put their delicious beer in there and then let it rest for 2 months. And then they can give me back those barrels, and I can put our rye whiskey in there. And then we have that layer of chocolate that I was looking for, and that kind of that creaminess. And so that's how ideas are born. It's really by just that simple, just tasting something, and then the chef side of my brain kicking on and saying, oh my God, we got to make a chocolate covered cherry, right? And same with the eighth notch. It was like I tasted something and I felt these light vanilla notes that I really wanted to accentuate, right? And so that's when the creation kind of becomes a reality. And when I start going down that path, if you will.
That's cool. I like the idea of not just tasting something and thinking, oh, this tastes like this, let's package it, but you tasting something and saying, oh, I'd love to
enhance it
with the chocolate, make it a chocolate covered cherry, as opposed to just, oh, this is a cherry bomb, let's make it a chocolate covered cherry bomb. Like that's cool. I like that.
We actually just did the Ribbon Rail Rye on an episode. It's been a couple episodes ago. We a local distillery here in Columbus called Middle West Spirits, and we just did. Oh yeah. It was for your 150th episode.
Right.
And I brought Ribbon Rail Rye. Like everybody was to bring a bottle, and I'm bringing this bottle, and everybody enjoyed it. Everybody loved it. We got the dark chocolate. I think we even got a little bit of mango on it.
Oh, nice.
Which was really good. But everybody was like grabbing the bottle, pouring some more, going, getting back
awesome.
After it after we kind of went around the horn.
Well, and we had a lot that night.
And we had a lot of whiskey.
For anyone to take
a
second pour of anything was always a good thing, because it was our 150th episode, so we probably had 15 bottles there.
Yeah, easily.
So I mean, for us to have anything that someone like Jason even brought the what was it, the 19-year-old Old Fitz from this year?
No, what did he?
Yeah. Remember, it was the small sample bottle.
Oh, that's right. Yeah,
there wasn't a lot left, but like for us to have that there, and I mean, it fit right in with everything else that we had that night. It was good.
Yeah, it was fantastic.
It was really good. So I like the story. So Virgil Kaine bucking the trend, kind of going against the consensus. You guys kind of at the time bucking the trend, going against the consensus, doing your ginger infused bourbon. I like it. A lot of parallels. That's a cool story. So tell us a little bit more. I know you kind of introduced Eighth Notch a little bit here, but tell us about that process, how you got to that. That's the current offering, right? Your current LTO?
That's correct. Yeah, another fun one. And when we do these limited time offerings, it's really, trust me, I've had so many ideas, and then I go Google it and I'm like, shit. This guy did this. All right. Well, now I got to start over. I really don't. We don't want to produce something that has been done before. We want it to be unique, and we want to push the industry, if you will, to keep being creative. I mean, when we did Ashcat, there was maybe one or two other whiskeys that blended openly and finished bourbon in barrels, right? Like, and look at where the industry is now. I'm not saying we were the trendsetters. Trust me. I know how small we are compared to the big dogs. We're not that. But, we want to continue to just push that envelope, let's be creative. Let's think outside of the barrel. That's a saying I always say, like, think outside of the barrel, almost, and figure out ways to enhance whiskeys, but different than anybody else, like different than Scotch makers, which was originally our inspiration. As much as I talk about not liking peaty stuff, they've done some really cool freaking finishes. And so, it's a challenge, especially today, to create things that haven't been done. But anyway, so this one is just came of necessity, if you will. Like, I love the smell of dried vanilla beans smoked. If you guys ever have the opportunity to make an old fashioned or something at your house and you have one of those old weed smoke guns or whatever, grab some vanilla beans, dry them out, and turn your oven on to like 400, right? And then turn it off. And then throw a couple vanilla beans in there, let it sit overnight, and tomorrow you'll have dry vanilla beans. Put it in a coffee grinder and put it in a smoke gun and smoke your glass before you put your old fashioned in there. You will be the man of the party. Let me just tell you. All right.
Gave me an idea.
I know, me too. I'm like sitting there, like I'm salivating.
Yeah, I've got.
Yeah.
I mean, we have the same smoker.
We have the
Agent Or.
Oh, nice. There you go.
That style smoker. So I think I'm gonna hate me here in a minute.
You're gonna go buy some vanilla bean on the way home?
I think so.
My wife loves vanilla bean. That's the one thing about bourbon. She is a big fan of, like, so my wife has the nose. I don't know if you ever watched the show Psych, but one of the guys on the show, he said he had a super sniffer. And she is like that. Like, she can nose anything and tell you all the. She's like, oh, I smell this, and this. And I'm like, son of a bitch, I've been doing this for years. Yet she's just now, she drinks vodka, but yet she'll pick up, and she's right there, by the way. She'll pick up my glass, she'll smell it, and she'll just tell me, like, oh yeah, I get this, or I get this, and I'm just like, damn it. I'm like, she just picks up a glass.
She picks it up, yeah.
Right. And
can she hear us?
Well, she just came down and brought some.
Okay. I didn't want to talk shit about vodka, with her there. No, I'm kidding.
We all talk shit about
Vodka sucks.
Right, exactly. No, she just did a little hit and run, gave Banks a treat out the door. So,
there you go. No treats for you guys.
No,
you already have your treat.
He's getting a little bit of extra loving right now. So
nice.
He
deserves it.
Why didn't I get cancer a long time ago?
I know, right?
Right, horrible joke. I deal with my emotions through comedy, so
humor.
So yeah, we poured some of this eighth notch. It's hard to turn off lisp when I'm using it for Banks, and then I start talking. I'll tell you, it's got a great color to it.
Yeah, I love the color.
The nose, the vanilla, like I definitely
it comes through.
Yeah, for sure.
That smokiness of it comes through as well. That smoked vanilla.
Yeah, there's definitely vanilla just coming out of just everything. Like I move it around, I go back to it, and vanilla is the first thing that hits me. I have to wade through it to get to anything else. Yeah. It's good.
Do you guys remember the cereal? I mean, you may still if you have kids. Cocoa Puffs.
Oh yeah.
Oh yeah.
I just
there you go. That's what smoked vanilla smells like.
Oh, son of a bitch. Yeah. Now I'm not gonna get that out of my head.
It's crazy. It's not even vanilla-y. It's almost like this cocoa-ness. And, and so when I was a chef, I mean, technically, I guess people would say I still am, but we would take ingredients, whether it was scallops or pork or whatnot, and we would smoke it with vanilla, right? So we would give it this beautiful cocoa-y flavor profile at a very cool temperature, obviously. And then we would cook it up, sear it up, whatever. And so when we delivered those products to people, whether it was scallops or pork or whatnot, it would have that cocoa flavor profile to it. And people would just be like, where the hell did that come from? So it's been in the back of my brain, like, how can I utilize this technique into whiskey making? But I just didn't find that bourbon that really, spoke to me, that said, this is the one. And this last, tasting period or whatnot, when I had 20 different whiskeys, there was one that just really spoke to me and said, this is the one. And so even though I've had this idea for like 4 years, it took 4 years to find a batch of barrels that really scream light notes of vanilla that could be accentuated with this cocoa beautiful aroma, and then it was like, how can we make this even more complex, right? Like toasted barrels are super popular right now, all those caramel notes. So how can we mix caramel and cocoa? And it was just like, boom, let's do it. I reached out to Gainesville Cooperage, right outside of Georgia. Inside Georgia, great little cooperage that are super passionate about banking great barrels. Got some toasted barrels from them. And this is when we started having fun. As soon as we got the barrels, we filled them with water, of course, to make sure they're, don't leak and swell, and then empty the water, get our smoke guns, fill that barrel up, let that barrel sit for about 10 days just to really take in all that vanilla smoke. Then we take our 5-year bourbon, that's from MGP, 74% corn. And we then filled those barrels up with that 5-year bourbon. And of course, after 5 years, there's some void in the barrel from angel share or natural, just a natural process of aging bourbon in oak. Evaporation is what I call it, but whatever. So we filled that void back up with that delicious vanilla smoke and let it sit for about 3 months. And, the smoke is light. You definitely get it on the back end. But it's got this like delicious caramelly, cocoa-y, I don't know. It's just fun. For me, and this is barrel proof, guys. So this is 116 proof. Most people that drink it are shocked when I say that. I just feel like it
didn't taste 116.
It doesn't drink like a 116, and we're both into the higher proof
sure
stuff. Like even this year, I said I'm not buying anything under 120.
Just to spending down,
to keep my spending down, and I kind of challenge myself this year. Like right off the bat, like the nose on this, you get that smoked vanilla, you get some caramel. I get another sweetness that I can't pinpoint. I usually just go straight to toffee. But the flavor on it, you said Cocoa Puffs. I was thinking more like Cocoa Pebbles. And the texture, as weird as this is going to sound, the texture to me is almost like it's very creamy, and it's almost like a portobello mushroom. Like it's got that creamy texture to it. Like if you just put a portobello in your mouth, you're just like, it just kind of melts in your mouth. It's fantastic. Like really good.
For me, so the evolution of this for me, because it's hit a lot of different things as I've tasted it and smelled it and retasted it. When I first nosed it, it was 100% I could get the vanilla. The first thing I would get was vanilla, and it was hitting me so hard I couldn't get anything else.
Yeah.
So I took a couple whiffs, just kind of let it settle, took a couple whiffs. I started to get a little bit of hint of chocolate in there. When I tasted it, interestingly enough, that's where I got the Cocoa Puffs. It was almost straight up, almost like a high malted barley content type of chocolatey kind of cacao type of thing for me, mixed with, and it wasn't just pure, there was just a little bit of chocolate, just in a couple of different ways. And then I went back to the nose. And so once I did that, I started getting some caramel on the nose. I started getting some chocolate on the nose and the vanilla too. But until I had that first drink, I couldn't get past the vanilla on the nose. Interestingly enough, when I taste it, I don't get much vanilla at all. I get almost all chocolate.
It's all caramel. Chocolate and smoke.
It's like chocolate. Well, yeah, there's some smoke for sure, but like chocolate and caramel are the main two notes I get. With there is some smokiness there. I do get a little bit of oak, I think. That's. But now I go back to the nose and I get a lot more than just the vanilla. It's really interesting how this has evolved for me.
Yeah.
And I've said this on a lot of my episodes is that for me, what'll keep me coming back to you is when you sit down and drink a bourbon. A lot of bourbons, like amazing. Tastes great on the first drink. Tastes great on the first drink. Tastes exactly the same, or maybe even start to fall flat the more you drink them.
Right.
But the really good bourbons for me are the ones that I'll drink and then taste really good. That's fine. It's a really nice flavor. But then I go back to the nose, it's changed a little bit. I go back to the flavor, to the taste again, and the profile's changed a little bit. And it evolves as I drink it throughout the evening. And it just makes me want to keep going back to it because I'm like, okay, what's it going to do next? What's it going to taste like next? And for me, a lot of bourbons that are really good, and I'm putting this in that category because I've now had 3 or 4 drinks, and each time I feel like it's changing a little bit every time I drink it. Your viscosity, your comment about the texture.
Yeah.
Like that. I don't know that I don't know that I'd go mushroom, but it's got a nice viscosity to it.
It's more the melting, like when you have a portobello and it kind of melts. I know
what you're going for.
It's creamy. It's
creamy.
good.
Creamy is a good description.
It's like buttery. It's almost like that. Yeah, like lactic kind of.
Yeah.
And that's what's the key thing we try to create, and same with food, right? When I was a chef, we wanted you by from the first bite to the last bite to appreciate that dish, right? Like we've all had that turkey sandwich where it's so freaking good in the first bite because we put jalapenos and vinegar and all that shit on there. But by the end, we're like, God, this is so boring. I
want a turkey sandwich with jalapenos on it now. That sounds great.
It's like the law of diminishing returns, right? Like pizza, you bite it, but then by the 5th piece of pizza, you're just like, okay, I'm just eating this because I'm eating it. But like a good bourbon, it's different. Like you keep drinking it because it's changing. So it's evolving.
And this isn't a pandering thing. Like I'm a huge fan of Virgil Kaine. Like I am a huge fan of Virgil Kaine.
What?
I know, right? I've even got a Virgil Kaine rocks glass here that I've been drinking out of. And I have a hat and I've got a pin.
You cannot see his Virgil Kaine underwear.
We got to get you the cape. The cape is.
You got a cape. I will take it. I will do it. But like all of your limited offering stuff drinks just like that. Every time I have a glass of it, it's a different experience every time I have a glass. Like it's not like going and grabbing, a bottle of Makers or a bottle of Blanton's or a bottle of Buffalo Trace where it's the same thing every time. It is a different experience every time I open the bottle. And I'll let a bottle sit because it's not available to us. We can't get it in Ohio. We have to mule it back. We have to know somebody in South Carolina. Or I picked
up a couple bottles in Nashville.
I was gonna say I know it's available in Tennessee.
It was Nashville, yeah.
But we can't get it here, so I will have to savor a bottle. And it reminds me of there's another distillery out in Vegas or out in Nevada called Two Bitch, and they're the same way. Like they have everything that they've put out. They have their run of the mill offering stuff is really good, but they have their one limited release that every time I visit that bottle, it's a different experience every time. So, and every time I visit like an Ash Cat or a Ribbon Rail Rye or when I had it, the Electric Owl, it's a different experience every time. Like the Electric Owl is crazy dark chocolate and tobacco to me. And I love it. And that's why I will not open that bottle again because it is just like it hits my notes every single time.
Well, to me, that's what makes a good bourbon is we always talk about bourbon and to me, bourbon is that slow down at the end of the day. It's not like I just finished a game of softball. I got to drink 4 or 5 beers and rehydrate, but also just, kind of get a buzz on or anything. Bourbon's not like that for me. No. Bourbon's an end of the day reminder to slow down, but also share, hang out, talk, just share stories about stuff. And we talk about it all the time, but that episode of Neat, or the movie Neat, I should say, where, Freddie Johnson, right? Johnson. He's talking about spending time with his dad, like 3rd generation at, Buffalo Trace. They're sharing a bottle of Pappy. He takes they each pour a drink out and he starts to put the bottle away. And his dad's like, "What are you doing?" He's like, "Oh, Dad, this is Pappy. I'm not, he's like, we're family.
You're making me feel bad about not bringing the Electric Owl over.
But he's like, we're family. This is what you do. You share bourbon. You share stories. You hang out together. the bourbon is about the memories and the stories and the people that you share it with. And it's just, I've always felt that way. That's why anytime anyone ever comes over to my bourbon cave, I never tell someone they can't have something.
Right.
Now, I might steer them away from something if they're a newbie. Just think, I want this.
The bottle looks pretty. That's going to be
well,
good.
But I'll let every one of the newbies have the blends because that's what they all think is whatever. But
whatever.
But if the newbie wants something, and I know they're putting ginger ale in it, no offense to the ginger infused, but I'm not going to let them do that to something that I think a month from now they might appreciate more.
Right.
So I'll give them something that's still going to taste good with ginger ale, but isn't,
right.
Whatever. And so,
of course,
but I'm never going to tell someone that they can't have something out of my room. Like if they want something, they can have it. That's just how I look. Because it's that story. And every 4th of July, I have a party here. People come down, and I bet you half of the night we spend it in my room, standing in that bourbon room, drinking, pouring different things, trying it out. And I've had 2 or 3 people since then talk about, hey, that's been one of my favorite nights in the last few months. We just sat down there and we talked and we were just sharing some bourbon. And to me, that's what bourbon's about.
Yeah.
And when you have a glass like an 8th notch here that basically evolves or changes every time you drink it, that's something to talk about to me. And that's something that makes me want to revisit. And then next time someone comes over that I know who's kind of into bourbon or whatever, hey, try this out.
It creates a memory for them.
What do you think of this? And a lot of my friends, they don't know what Virgil Kaine is because it's not available in Ohio.
No. Well, and that's I have a running joke where it's like anybody who knows about Virgil Kaine in Ohio is because of me.
Well, I don't think you're wrong.
It might be right. He might be correct.
Are
you guys not available to, or do you not have the ability to shop online yet, or have things sent to you?
For a control state,
no.
We can have stuff sent to us, but we can't pay for it.
We can't pay for it.
That's the cap.
Yeah, a distillery can send something to us. We can't pay for it, but I can't ship something to Dude, and Dude can't ship something to me. That is consent.
Right.
Well,
it has to come.
I can ship ship you a snow globe.
Yeah.
Or a bottle of olive oil.
Or perfume.
Yes. But
oddly enough,
olive oil
from another state, as a distillery, you're allowed to ship stuff to us. I know that FedEx and UPS, when the distilleries send me stuff, they're like, hey, you getting another bottle of bourbon? I'm like, yeah.
Well, and that's the weird thing. Like USPS, it's illegal to ship alcohol.
Right.
Yes, beer, wine, anything.
Yeah.
But FedEx and UPS carry a liquor license to be able to ship wine and beer and liquor. But as a control state, we are not allowed to pay for something and have it sent to us.
Allegedly.
As far as spirits go.
That's ridiculous.
It is.
I mean, I was going to say, to any users that are not in Ohio, we partnered up with sealbox.com.
Oh, yeah. Good site.
Great people, and they have some of this 8th notch. So sealbox.com.
Yeah,
is that Blake?
Yeah. Now,
Blake Robber.
Yeah,
we can do like SharePour. They can ship to us.
Well, they're not allowed. They just will. There's some places that ignore that law. All I'm saying. Oh, I'm serious.
Let's
not blast them out.
Yeah, but we can remove that.
There are some places that will ship to Ohio anyway. And here's the funny thing. This is the thing I don't understand. Supposedly the law is there to prevent taxes from being avoided in Ohio. But anytime you order anything online, you're paying your Ohio tax.
Yeah.
So if anything, they're basically screwing themselves out of taxes, in my opinion.
Yeah.
It makes no sense to me. It's an antiquated. Yeah. It makes no sense. And
I can't believe you guys are behind the South Carolina buck. I mean, that is amazing. I thought we were the last to get laws passed.
I was going to say,
South Carolina's one.
Is it North Carolina? North Carolina, I think, is a control state as well. Yeah, but it's controlled at a county level.
Yes.
So you could get all kinds of crazy, Blantons and Makers and everything else, like the barrel stave program from Makers. Mm-hmm. You may be in one county, that county only gets Jack Daniels, but the next county over,
it's crazy.
They'll get everything from Makers as far as their barrel stave program goes. And I was talking to a gentleman down there, and he's just like, he's like, luckily I live on the border. He goes, so I just jump the border, 10 minutes. Yep. He goes, I can get everything from Maker's Mark. He goes, the only thing they sell here is Jim and Jack.
Well, if you live,
it's terrible.
There's like Charlotte, North Carolina. There's a pretty well-known liquor store just on the other side in South Carolina, down 77, I think it is.
Okay.
Interstate 77. That's just right across the border in South Carolina. That gets a ton of business from the Charlotte people. They travel down there.
Rock Hill.
It is. I think.
Yeah.
I think you're right.
I love Rock Hill.
Yeah.
Rock Hill's a nice place.
So they go down there. They cross the border. They get to South Carolina, and then there's just all this stuff that they just don't normally have, and it's just crazy. Like I don't understand. Some of these laws are antiquated. Some of them I get. Like to some degree I get the 3-tier system. To some degree I understand a little bit of control. Like the one thing I will say about Ohio being a control state, if you buy it in a liquor store or a liquor agency, it's MSRP. We don't have secondary here, so I'm happy about that.
I'm happy to not have to pay additional for.
And we do get some really nice things, like we get all the Weller Antique and Special Reserve that you could ever ask for.
Well, depending on what store you're at.
Well,
like I never get it down where we're at, but you seem to have like a plethora of it. You've got cases.
I think, and this is just conjecture here because of the thing that's happening at House of Bourbon. I think that Antique has not been coming to Ohio nearly as much as it used to. But Special Reserve, there'll be 4 boxes of it just sitting on the floor, and it's there half the day, and you're just like
that. We get plenty of,
but then we don't get like 12-year. We don't get, unless it's in the lottery.
Well,
we don't get 12-year. We don't get foolproof. We don't get the Sue YPB or whatever it's called.
No, those are lottery.
We don't.
But we get Buffalo Trace. We get Eagle Rare. We get E.H. Taylor. We get all those things, but they're gone that day. That's the problem.
Well, you got to get it.
Because
you got to get
MSRP.
to the store at like 4:00 in the morning. You got to stand outside. You got to.
I refuse to do that.
Pitch your tent.
When I first started doing this, we are the Bourbon Hunters because we used to hunt for bourbon, and we would do that. But you didn't have to get out there before 7 a.m.
No,
7 or 8 a.m. and you were fine. But now, if you're not there by 4 a.m. with like 4 lawn chairs, like it's stupid. People will just come set up lawn chairs at 4 a.m. and then leave. And honest to God, I've decided at some point I'm just going to take a week and do a staycation, and I'm going to go to all the drop sites that week. And when I find lawn chairs, I'm going to take them and throw them in the trash.
Actually, I wish I had I wish I'd taken video of it.
If you're not in line, you're not in line.
I agree. There was a guy who at my local Giant Eagle. So here in Ohio, Giant Eagle releases their allocated product on Saturdays.
Almost statewide.
It's statewide at this
least
point.
Central Ohio for sure, but I think it's statewide.
It doesn't matter if they get their delivery on a Tuesday or a Thursday. They release it on a Saturday.
And they had to get special allowance from what we call OHLQ, which is our state liquor agency.
Yeah. So, but I drove by I was going to my Giant Eagle just to pick up something real quick. And there was a guy literally grabbing chairs. I don't know if he was like waiting in line, like he was just there to, get liquor or whatever, but he was grabbing chairs and chucking them out into the parking lot in Lancaster. And I'm like, good for you. I went in and grabbed what I needed to get and I went home.
But that's just absolutely ridiculous. Like, I don't know why people think that a chair is a spot and
I don't know,
whatever. And it's ridiculous anyway. It shouldn't be that way to begin with, because the thing that I think irritates me the most is there are a few people in that group that are actually getting it for themselves to drink.
Yeah.
But I swear the majority of the people waiting in line for that type of stuff are just wanting to turn around and sell it for a profit. And that's what's frustrating.
Yeah, absolutely. Like, and I don't know, do you guys have that issue down there in South Carolina where people were, they're waiting in line to get something just to turn around and flip it? Like, I mean, if someone, I will say, if someone came up and offered me honestly a couple grand for an electric owl for the last bottle on the planet, other than the case that you have in your closet, I'd be like, but I may not. I may turn it down.
Listen, man, to me, what's that $1,000 going to do for you?
Buy me another lens for my camera.
Okay, but at the end of the day,
is it going to make me happy? No.
Right. Is the electric owl sitting down, bringing it here next time you come here and opening it up, enjoying with
just not Tyler?
Well, Tyler can be sitting there, but not giving him any.
that would be even better.
That would be a memory that would be worth $1,000, right?
That would be a $1,000 memory.
I like how you were teeing him up for the next time to bring the electric drink out and open it. Look at that.
I thought
planting seeds. I love it.
It is by far, like I said, the Electric Owl is by far one of my favorite of all time. And I was only able to get 3 bottles of it.
I know you're a huge Virgil Kaine fan. Yes. I love Virgil Kaine as well. I mean, all these bottles, with the exception of the Ashcat, are mine. So, and I only brought out like half of mine because a lot of them are repeats because I have doubles and stuff just in case. LTOs. I know that Eighth Notch is probably the only thing available right now, but what do you think about the LTOs you've had in order, if you had to rank them, gun to your head?
If I'm going in order, gun to my head, I'm going Electric Owl's number 1. Okay. Like that is by far like my favorite of all time.
That is the one I've never had.
And I have a bottle. Wow. It's weird.
He's teeing it up even more. I love this. I
would say that Ashcat and Eighth Notch, they're a tie.
Yeah.
Like I could put them side by side and enjoy, because they're different.
Yeah.
Completely different from each other. And they are fantastic. Then from there, it is Roundhouse and Ribbon Rail Rye. And I love all of them. Like that doesn't, like, I don't want to say that it's, Ribbon Rail's the worst or not the worst.
You got to rank them.
But if I'm ranking them,
but you still like it.
Out of all of those, like
they're all
that's
good.
the order that I'm going with.
So I've never had the Electric Owl. I'd say the Eighth Notch is probably my favorite, but it hits me in the place that I love. I love vanilla, and I love that viscosity and chocolatiness, like that. Anything that's got a decently high malted barley content that gives it a chance to age or mature and oxidize and just get that nice flavor. I'm generally a fan of that. And Eighth Notch hits me in all the right places there. I think it gives me that vanilla. It gives me the caramel. It gives me the chocolate. It gives me the viscosity. All those things that I really, really enjoy out of bourbon. And I think the only thing I'm not getting, that if it did this, it'd be a freaking grand slam home run, a little bit of brown sugar. But it's close. Like that's the only thing that's the only thing I'm missing. Everything else is hitting me perfect.
It is. It's amazing. I'm real curious what this would be like
if it had a little brown sugar in it.
Not just a little brown sugar. In a couple months.
Oh,
just
now that it's open. Now that it's
let
open
it sit. It's open. Let it. Yeah, it's
to the widest part of the bottle now.
Right, and that's the beauty of using live ingredients, right? And what I mean by live ingredients are ingredients that are real, first off, and then two that. I mean, it was like a living organism, right? Like watching that smoke go into the barrel and come out. I mean,
the process was cool.
Yeah, I mean, it's so cool. And it's same with the Electric Owl. There was an active, I mean, that was in sour barrels, right? The live active yeast and things that they use to make a sour beer. I mean, that's a live active ingredient. These ingredients are going to change over time, and they're going to completely change the the flavor profile of things once they're exposed to oxygen or time. And that's what's fun about them too. It's like, I can't wait to try this in a year and see what happens. Right. Like, I mean, that's part of the fun. Hopefully none of them turn to shit in a year, because that would suck. But
to be fair,
yeah.
Unless you get it to like a less than a third full of a bottle, I feel like I don't want to jinx it, but I don't feel like I've ever had a bottle turn bad over time.
I've had 2.
Generally,
that's it.
Generally, when it's happened to me, it's only been when the bottle's been only like over 2/3 empty.
No, I've had 2 bottles with 2/3 full out of like 1,500 bottles that I've had over my lifetime. 2 bottles go bad, and they were both low.
Well, that doesn't surprise me.
But that's neither here nor there.
Yeah, and hopefully we can get these laws changed, because, we really, when we do these things too, really try to release them at a price point that is approachable to people. Like we're not trying to be a $600 bottle on the secondary market. Like we want everybody that's has the ability to get one, you know, and you know, we have the same markup on this bottle that we do on our Rip Track bourbon. You know, we're not trying to price gouge anybody because it's limited. And I think that's like, I just feel like that's what bourbon's about, man. Like drink with your friends.
I agree. I think your pricing is spot on. I mean, the ginger is like a $30 bottle. The Rip Track is about a $30. Your regular shelfer offerings are right around $30. Your limited offer stuff is, I think I paid at most $120 for a bottle from somebody and that was again for the Electric Owl. But I think I've paid on average about $100 for a bottle from your limited offering stuff. I don't think that's bad. I think that's like right on par with everybody else or under everybody else, to be honest. I mean, you could get it here for $80 or online for 80, but you know, secondary markets. And it's those were the Electric Owls were purchased in South Carolina. So the one bottle I paid $120 in Simpsonville. A buddy of mine
price gouger.
Yeah, I mean he buddy of mine he sent me the photo and he's like, it's $120. I'm like, grab it. Like, I don't care, grab it.
Right.
The other one I bought myself, and I think that was probably close to $89, and that was at Pavilion. And then the same buddy in Simpsonville found it at another store for about $110, and I'm like, just grab it, I don't care. Like I told him, I'm like, if you see it, just grab it, let me know, and then I'll pick it up from whenever I'm down in South Carolina. No, I think your prices are spot on. Whether it's when it comes to, and I'm going to use 2Bitch as my example. I know the owners of 2Bitch Bourbon out in Eureka, Nevada. They make a fantastic product. Their limited run it's called Pack Leader Reserve. They ended up selling everything to, it's like a Benny's or something like that in Chicago. So the retail on it was $150, which I'm like, fine, I'm in. Like, send what do I need to do? Get a bottle? She said, go to this website. They wanted $275 per bottle.
Gosh.
That is, I'm like, I can't spend that. And I even sent her a message. I'm like, I can't buy the bottle from your distributor because I'm not going to spend $275 on the bottle. They marked the bottle up so fucking high that there's no chance that I was going to spend the money on that. And it's the one bottle that they've released that I have not gotten. And at some point I'll have them on my show, but I was supposed to be out there last week and I was going to meet up with them in Vegas. But again, here nor there, I think your pricing is perfect. Like, I would spend $150 on one of your limited offers, but that's also I'm not spending more than $150.
Yeah.
That's my cap. So, you guys are killing it. Like, just absolutely killing it. I'm a huge fan. I've always been a fan. I've been a fan since 2016.
As long as I've met you, you've talked about them.
Yeah. So. I mean,
we've done a podcast together, haven't we?
We have not. No, I would be more than happy to have you on my show.
I thought we did something together. No, I know we sent you like glasses and some stuff. We didn't.
You did, yeah. Actually, the glass I'm drinking out. You sent me glasses. You actually sent me a bottle of Ribbon Rail Rye, but you haven't been on the show. Huh. And I will be more than happy to have you on the show.
That's crazy. I was on somebody's show that said it was Buckhorn podcast. Maybe somebody was representing you.
Someone's representing me then, but no, it wasn't my show. I haven't.
Randy.
Yeah, it may have been. If you were on a show with a fat guy that's like 400 pounds, it may have been It may have been a version of my show.
Co-host.
My co-host.
There you go. There you go. That is crazy. I could have sworn we were on your
show.
Oh well.
I think you guys sent me the bottle of Ribbon Rail Rye, and I reached back out and I never heard back about getting you on the show. Like it was all through Instagram, I think. And I was just like, all right,
Okay.
got the bottle, because I think you guys reached out to me about, hey, we're going to send you this bottle. What's your address? And I'm like, great. Here's the address. And then after I'm like, hey, I got the bottle. When do we want to do this? And then it was nothing.
Listen, just let's move on, since your podcast isn't as, and that's fine.
Your podcast is absolutely bigger than mine, but I've been doing it longer.
That's fair.
Yeah.
Which is even more of an insult.
It is an insult, because I only get like I don't care, because I don't do the show. I don't do the show for everybody. I do the show because it's an outlet. Like I get to talk.
Yeah.
I get to talk bullshit.
That's the whole reason I do our show, man.
But I have like 40 downloads a week.
Listen.
And but I'm not.
I don't mean to laugh. I'm not laughing.
No,
it's
it's
just
fine.
Because I was at that point the first week that we released, and then week 2 we already surpassed that.
But you do specifically bourbon.
You're right.
I'm more of a variety show.
That's a fair.
This last show, I was down in Virginia. We talked about my trip down to Virginia, and I did photography for a race team. Like I got commissioned. Like a buddy of mine is the operations director for a race team in Virginia, and he's like, "Hey, I want you to come down, document the weekend." We touched that for maybe 5 minutes total, because Randy hates racing for some reason. He's a car guy, but he hates racing.
That's funny.
So we did like
fun.
5 minutes of that, and then we talked about the zebra attack that happened here in Ohio, and we talked about some other stuff, and like that was a show.
The Florida man got basically told, like, Ohio said to hold my beer.
Yeah,
basically.
Ohio was like, "Oh, you got alligators? We got zebras."
Zebras.
That's what like. I got attacked by a zebra.
All right. So
anyway.
All right. Back to zebras. No, sorry. I need a pet zebra, actually.
Everyone needs a zebra.
As long as it gets shot.
Yeah.
And
they
killed
unfortunately
by the
they
animal control people. That's just crazy.
How come they haven't bred mini zebras? I mean, we would be in business.
I got plenty of land.
You've
for
got
that.
land. I was going to say the same thing.
We can get some like Shetland ponies and zebras.
You have to start getting the breeding right to where you get the coloring and
we'll worry about that.
All right.
We'll do blonde zebras.
Blonde zebras.
Business plan 101.
We have
right now.
Of evolving on taste. We've devolved as a podcast here.
We've done bored the crap out of everyone.
Right? For all the 2 listeners still listening, thank you for having on. This is March.
Yeah, this is. I've only been on like 10 episodes. So
this is his 11th and last episode. No, but honestly, I know we're a little over an hour in. Just to be aware of your time, I know we've talked about a little bit of the history of the distillery. We've talked about your history. We've talked about some of the limited time offerings. Anything on the horizon that fans of Virgil Kaine or people who are about to become fans of Virgil Kaine should know about?
Well, I mean, one thing to just state is, if you're not a whiskey drinker, or if you are somebody that's looking to get into the category, I mean, definitely grab a bottle of ginger and put it on the rocks and drink it with some soda and lime, soda water, not your typical soda, and really just enjoy what the brand was created to provide. And that's a way to drink bourbon, whether it's 100 degrees outside or 10 degrees outside. I mean, just a refreshing way to enjoy whiskey and bourbon whiskey and get into the category. It's a great, refreshing take on a vodka soda. You don't need to drink vodka soda anymore. I mean, we've created something for you to
just for you.
This is what I start people off with.
Well, I'll say, like, one of the things that I love about bourbon is, and just whiskey in general, to be fair, there's so many great entries into bourbon and whiskey.
Yeah.
Like, for example, Angel's Envy, great entry into bourbon. It's a little bit, it drinks soft because of the finish. The ginger infused bourbon here from Virgil Kaine, another example that's, I'm not putting them at the same level. I'm putting them at different entries for different people. Same thing with like the Angel's Envy rye. If you if you're looking for rye, the double oaked from Woodford Reserve, I always say, is a great dessert.
That's the best thing they offer.
But that's a good thing, again, for people to just who aren't really into bourbon to try, and just kind of, it's Old Forester 86 proof. It's another soft drinker that's got a nice lot of banana flavor to it, that just kind of soft and easy. A nice entry to bourbon and whiskey. And there's so many out there now, just because of all the finished bourbons and all the different things like that, finished whiskeys, that I think another, and it sounds like you guys were doing it first, I mean, or at least very close to first, but there's so many different entry points now into whiskey and bourbon. And I love that.
I will say that the ginger infused at this point is the one that I start people off with. If someone comes to my house, I've got like 4 bottles.
Sure, I've got 2 unopened in the back. I've got this one that's almost empty. I'll probably make an old fashioned out of it tonight after you leave. But like, to be fair,
why do I have to leave?
I don't know. I'm just saying. So,
did you bring me some bourbon? No.
He's got a Brylan in the making.
Yeah, he's got
right there. My 18-year-old son is a.
No dinner or bourbon. That's messed up.
What is going on with that? You have not trained him well.
That is terrible.
No, my 18-year-old son, he's been a constant interrupter of the episodes as we've done these podcasts.
And actually, I was going to say my 10-year-old daughter makes me old fashions.
But what I was going to say is I think for me, to be transparent, I've never had the ginger infused bourbon neat. And I've never had it like with soda water or on the rocks. I've got some Perrier up. I might try it tonight.
I would try that. Like, I've had it neat. I love it neat. I like it more as an old fashioned. Like,
I've had it an old fashioned because of you.
Because of me, yes.
But I've never tried it neat, and I've never tried it with just like some soda water type, whatever.
It makes such a old fashioned.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. It makes such. I'm going to change just because you mentioned it, David. I'm going to start doing the old fashions I'm going to use the orange bitters, but I'm going to put a squirt of lime in it.
Uh-oh.
And see, I'm going to kind of mix it up a little bit.
Look at you.
I know. Because the recipe is 2 ounces of Virgil Kaine ginger, a couple dashes of orange bitters, some simple syrup or agave syrup. I haven't tried it with the maple maple syrup yet.
Yeah.
And then I take a clementine and I will squeeze it into my shaker as well, and I'll shake all that together.
How do you shake it?
Like this.
Yeah.
Not like this.
Thank you, sir.
All right. So I'll shake all that together and then pour it over ice. But
is there going to be an Ohio Man article about you running with scissors soon?
I was running with scissors yesterday.
All right, fair enough.
I mean,
crazy. I like it though.
I'm thinking I might switch out and with a little lime zest in it instead of some orange zest.
There you go.
To use lime, I would definitely try shaking it like this, because the other shake's not gonna.
Yeah, we'll figure it out. We'll figure it out.
We're idiots if you haven't figured it out yet, David.
There you go.
Well, we're at an hour and a half. I know the first 5 minutes or so we were just kind of talking, but we're close enough to an hour and a half. I want to thank you for coming on.
My pleasure.
The Eighth Notch. Anyone listening? I know we have a lot of listeners outside of Ohio, so if you're listening and
if you got access to it,
if you have access, so that being the case, where all are you available? Let's talk about that.
So, obviously online through Sealbox and through our website, you can find our products if you're in a state that can order. But currently we are distributed in South Carolina, Georgia, Florida, New York, New Jersey, Michigan. Michigan, I think is getting 40 cases of the Eighth Notch.
Stadium Market. Basic familiar to you by any chance? Stadium Market.
I'm sorry? Not to me, but hopefully to the person that will be selling over there.
That's Tyler's Honey Holes. So
yeah, that's why. Okay, all right. So all the states like
Tennessee?
near you, but just not.
Not us.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, that's messed up. We're gonna change that. That's my
Yep.
commitment to you guys. We're gonna
Upside
the
down.
next limited time offering is
So
coming to Ohio first.
can I put a request in? Because
Sure.
you guys did a weeded with
Mm-hmm.
with the Ash Cat. Can we get just a 100% weeded, like
Like a weeded whiskey.
a weeded whiskey,
Interesting.
finished in a with the brewery that you guys use, to get kind of that sweet chocolatey type of finish, or something that is around the same, like 116 proof on a weeded.
Okay.
Use those culinary skills. Let's
Yeah.
The non-culinary guys.
No. You're hold on.
I love it.
It was either I
love
went
it.
to school for culinary school, or I came out and went to DeVry, and
And you went to DeVry.
I chose DeVry.
So you have no culinary background. That's what I'm saying.
have somewhat of a culinary background.
Choosing not to go to culinary school does not give you a culinary background.
No, but I can cook.
All right. Fair enough.
There you go.
I can make scrambled eggs. Does that make me a culinary?
Yes,
All right.
you're a savant.
You got the wheels turning. So
Yeah.
we did bourbon.
A weeded would be,
or even just a weeded whiskey. We
weeded
are
whiskey.
fans of weeded whiskeys. I'll say that.
yeah. I mean,
Weeded whiskeys are
a
good.
weeded anything.
They just take a little bit longer to age, man. That's
They
the
do.
only problem.
Yeah.
so
Yep.
good.
Or mature, I
Yep.
should.
They're so good.
Mature.
But back to my original closing. Thank you for coming on. This was great. I didn't get a chance to really revisit, but tonight I had the Rip Track Bourbon, I had the Ash Cat, and I had the Eighth Notch. And I will say that the LTOs definitely shine just because they're different.
Yeah, absolutely.
But I'll tell you, the Rip Track, if you can find that, that's a regular shelfer. If you can find that, that's outstanding. I really enjoyed that. We didn't taste the ginger infused tonight or the Robber Baron Rye whiskey.
The Robber Baron Rye is fantastic.
But it's good.
as
I was
well.
going to say the
Yeah.
Robber Baron Rye is really good. In fact, that's my third bottle, and it is a third empty already. My ginger infused is almost empty, and I have one. Maybe I think I have 2 bottles left of the ginger infused because I went through a kick of making old fashioned, so I wanted to make sure I had plenty of those. But yeah, if you get a chance to pick up their regular shelfers, they're all good. But if you get a chance to see an LTO right now, Eighth Notch would be the one that's out on the shelves. But pick it up. I mean,
Grab it.
I'll say that for me, the Eighth Notch was my favorite of what we had tonight. And again, it's because of the vanilla and the chocolate that really hits home for me. But the Ash Cat was outstanding as well. I mean, everything we had tonight was good, and that's always a good thing for me when we have someone on that I don't have to lie to them and tell them that their stuff's good, because that's always
fantastic.
That's always a good thing.
It always sucks.
I never lie. I never do lie. I usually say, well, it's not really my taste profile, but I could see where people would like this. I didn't have to do it tonight, so that's good.
I appreciate it.
Behind the curtain.
I'm glad. Yeah.
Yeah. I'm always going to be a fan. I've been a fan since the day that I found you
when
guys.
I told him that you guys were going to be on, he has been doing everything he can to make sure he was.
Yeah, it was like
So,
and unfortunately, it was
you
the thing.
probably
Like,
made the other guys you flatten their tires and stuff.
Yeah,
oh yeah, I sliced tires.
he did.
Yeah.
It's not above me.
When we were looking at last week, he wasn't going to be able to be
No,
here.
I was on
it
my
actually
way
worked
back.
out for you better.
So it worked out.
Yeah.
Boom.
So yeah, but thanks for coming on tonight. If you get a chance, check out Virgil Kaine online. It looks like you can buy that at Seal Box. If you can ship to your house, that's a great place to buy. Where can we find you on social media?
Virgil at _Kaine, I believe, on Instagram, and then Virgil Kaine on Facebook as well.
All right. And you guys have a
Actually, Virgil Kaine, one word. That's how much I on social media.
All right.
But yeah, we have a significant amount of followers, a lot of good people, and some cool content where you could learn about the Low Country, see where we live, and see what we're up to. So
yeah, I'll say that's a good resource too. It actually has a lot of good information on it. But if you want to just follow more for like social media things and things like that, Instagram, it sounds like, Facebook. But the website does have a lot of cool information on it. That's where I found out most of everything I wanted to find out. So that's good. But you've been a great guest today. Thank you for coming on. And
thanks for having me.
It took us like 3 weeks of rescheduling to get this to happen. But I've had the bottle of Eighth Notch for a while, and I make a thing not to open it until the episode they're on. So it's been sitting back there for over a month. And,
I'm sorry.
No, not your fault.
Terrible.
No. We do it so that our first actual drink is live on, well, not live because we record, but, during the actual episode so that it's not, it's
not staged.
Not staged. It's not prepared, anything like that. So we opened it tonight, poured it tonight, and had it when we were talking to you. So we do that on purpose. We do that every episode that we have a guest on, and it's for the reason of just trying to be as authentic as possible. And I think that I'm glad we had you guys on. Everything we had was good. So if you get a chance, reach out, find Virgil Kaine at a store online, try it out. If you can get a hold of Eighth Notch, I'll tell you that right now. It's probably my favorite that we've had. Just again, if you're into the vanilla, the caramel, the chocolate, it's right there. So
again, I've never been disappointed by any of the limited stuff.
Yeah.
So it's
neither have I. So
way to go.
Yeah. All right. Well, David, thank you again for coming on. Have a great night, and I'm glad we finally got this worked out. So.
Yeah, thanks for having me, and please look me up when y'all come to Charleston.
Absolutely,
for sure. Definitely.
Now I'm going to, because you told me I could.
There you go.
You don't even even know what you just opened yourself up for.
The whole box of worms that you don't even want to get.
Hey, we got great places to drink. A lot of Virgil Kaine. So come on down.
All right.
Look forward to having you.
Thank you, and
I appreciate it.
Thank you, guys.
We'll hopefully have you on again soon.
All right.
Yeah, sounds great. Take care, guys. Thanks
You
again.
too.
Thank you.
See you.
Thank you for joining in for yet another episode of the Bourbon Hunters. If you like what you hear, please leave us a good rating on Apple, Podbean, Google, or wherever you are listening. It definitely helps us to get great guests on our show. And follow us on Instagram and the Facebooks to keep up to date with what is in our glass. As always, sit back, grab a pour, kick up your feet, and enjoy some bourbon.